Torah Truth for Us with Linda. The Scroll of Amos. The words of Amos, who was among the sheepherders from Tekoa, which he envisioned in visions concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Yehudah, and in the days of Rehoboam, son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. And he said, Yehovah roars from Zion, and from Jerusalem he utters his voice. And the pastures of the shepherds mourn, and the summit of Carmel withers. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Damascus and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they threshed Gilead with implements of iron. I will send fire upon the house of Hazael, and it will devour the palaces of Ben-Hadad. I will also break the city gate of Damascus, and cut off the inhabitant of the valley of Aven, and him who holds the scepter from Beth Eden. So the people of Aram will go exile to Kir, says Yehovah. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Gaza and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they deported an entire population to deliver up to Edom. So I will send fire upon the wall of Gaza, and it will devour her palaces. I will also cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod, and him who holds the scepter from Ashkelon. I will even cause to return my hand upon Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines will perish, says my master Yehovah. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Tyre, and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they delivered up an entire population to Edom, and did not remember the covenant of brothers. So I will send fire upon the wall of Tyre, and it will devour her palaces. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because he pursued his brother with the sword while he stifled his compassion. His anger also tore continually, and he maintained his fury forever. So I will send fire upon Teman, and it will devour the palaces of Bozrah. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of the sons of Ammon, and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they ripped open the pregnant woman of Gilead in order to enlarge their borders. So I will kindle a fire on the wall of Arabah, and it will devour her palaces amid war cries on the day of battle, and a storm on the day of tempest. Their king will go into exile, he and his princes together, says Yehovah. Chapter 2. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Moab and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because he burned the bones of the king of Edom to lime. So I will send fire upon Moab, and it will devour the palaces of Kerioth, and Moab will die amid tumult with shouting and a voice of the trumpet. I will also cut off the judge from her midst, and slay all her princes with him, says Yehovah. Thus says Yehovah, for 3 transgressions of Yehudah and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they despise the Torah of Yehovah, and have not kept his commandments. Their lies also have led them astray, those after which their fathers walked. But I will send a fire upon Yehudah, and it will devour the palaces of Jerusalem. Thus says Yehovah, For the 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4, I will not turn back its punishment, because they sell the righteous for money, and the needy for a pair of sandals. They pant after the dust of the earth on the head of the helpless, also turn aside the way of the humble. And a man and his father pervert, and go into the same girl in order to defile my holy name. And on garments taken as pledges, they pervert by every altar. And the wine of the condemned they drink in the house of their Elohim. Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. And yet I destroyed his fruit above and his roots beneath. And I brought you up from the land of Egypt. And I led you in the wilderness 40 years to possess land of the Amorite. Then I raised up some of your sons to be prophets, and some of your young men to be Nazirites. Is this not so, O sons of Israel, declares Yehovah? But you made the Nazirites drink wine, and you commanded the prophets, saying, You shall not prophesy. Behold, I am weighted down beneath you as a wagon totters when filled with sheaves. A place of refuge will perish from the swift, and the stalwart will not strengthen his power, nor the mighty man save his soul. He who grasps the bow will not stand, the swift of foot will not escape, nor will he who rides the horse save his soul. Even the stout of heart among the warriors will flee naked in that day, declares Yehovah. Chapter 3. Hear this word which Yehovah has spoken against you, sons of Israel, against the entire family on which he brought up from the land of Egypt. You only have I known among the families of the earth. Thus I will visit upon you for all your iniquities. Can 2 walk together except unless they are appointed? Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Does a young lion cry out from its den if he has caught nothing? Does a bird fall into a trap on the ground when there is no bait in it? Does a trap spring up from the earth when it captures nothing at all? If a trumpet is blown in a city, will not the people tremble? If a calamity occurs in a city, has not Yehovah done it? Surely nothing does the Master Yehovah speak, for unless he reveals his secret to his servant, the prophets. A lion has roared. Who will not fear? The Master Yehovah has spoken. Who cannot prophesy? Proclaim in the palaces in Ashdod and in the palaces in the land of Egypt, and say, Assemble yourselves on the mountains of Samaria, and see great tumults within her and in her midst. But they do not know how to do what is right, declares Yehovah, those who hoard up the booty from violence and devastation in their palaces. Therefore thus says the Lord Yehovah, an enemy, even one surrounding the land, will pull down your strength from you, and your palaces will be looted. Thus says the Lord Yehovah, just as the shepherd delivers from the lion's mouth a couple of legs or a piece of an ear, so will the sons of Israel dwelling in Samaria be delivered, in the corner of a bed and the edge of a couch. Hear and testify against the house of Jacob, declares the Lord Yehovah, the Elohai of hosts. For on the day that I punish Israel's transgressions, I will also punish the altars of Bethel. The horns of the altar will be cut off, and they will fall to the ground. I will also smite the harvest time house together with the summer house. The houses of ivory inlay will also perish, and the great houses will come to an end, declares YHWH. Chapter 4. Hear this word, you cows, of who are on the mountain of Samaria, who oppress the poor, who crush the needy, who say to your masters, bring now that we may drink. The Lord YHWH has sworn by his holiness. Behold, the days are coming upon you when they will take you away with meat hooks, and the last of you with fish hooks. You will go out breaches, each one straight before her, and you will be cast to Harmon, declares YHWH. Enter Bethel and transgress. In Gilgal multiply transgressions. Bring your sacrifices every morning, your tithes every 3 days. Offer up in smoke a thanks offering, also from that which is leavened, and proclaim free will offerings, make them known. For so you love, you sons of Israel, declares the Lord YHWH. But I gave you also cleanness of teeth in all your cities, and lack of bread in all your places, yet you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. And furthermore, I withheld the rain from you while there were still 3 months until harvest. Then I would send rain on one city, and on another city I would not send rain. One part would be rained on, while the other part, not rained on, would dry up. So 2 or 3 cities would stagger to another city to drink water, but would not be satisfied. Yet you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I blasted you with blight and mildew, and the locusts devoured your increased gardens and vineyards, fig trees and olive trees, yet you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I sent a plague among you after the manner of Egypt. I slew your young men by the sword along with your captured horses, and I made the stench of your camp rise up in your nostrils. Yet you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I overthrew you as Elohim overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and you were like a firebrand snatched from a blaze. Yet you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. Therefore, thus I will do to you, O Israel, because I shall do this to you. Prepare to meet your Elohim, O Israel. For behold, he who forms mountains and creates the wind and declares to man what are his thoughts, he who makes dawn into darkness and treads on the high places of the earth, YHWH Elohai Sabaoth is his name. Chapter 5. Hear this word, which I take up for you as a dirge, O house of Israel. She has fallen, no more will she rise. The Virgin of Israel, she lies forsaken on her land, no one to raise her up. For thus says the Master YHWH, the city which goes forth 1,000 will have 100 left, and the one which goes forth 100 will have 10 left to the house of Israel. For thus says YHWH to the house of Israel, seek me, that you may live, but do not seek Bethel, and do not come to Gilgal, nor cross over to Beersheba. For Gilgal will certainly go into captivity, and Bethel will come to trouble. Seek YHWH that you may live, lest he break forth like a fire in the house of Yosef, and it consume with no one to quench in Bethel. You who turn to wormwood, justice and righteousness in the earth, lay to rest. He made the Pleiades and Orion, and he turns into morning the shadow of death, and the day is night. He calls forth the waters of the sea to grow dark, and pours them out on the surface of the earth. YHWH is his name. He rains ruin upon the strong, so that fury comes upon the fortress. They hate in the gate the one who rebukes, and the one who speaks uprightly they abhor. Therefore, because you trample upon heavy rent on the poor and exact a tribute of grain from them, you have built houses of well-hewn stone, yet you will not live in them. You have planted pleasant vineyards, yet you will not drink their wine. For I know your transgressions are many, and your sins are great, who distress the righteous, accept bribes, and turn aside the poor in the gate. Therefore, at that time, the prudent person keeps silent, for it is an evil time. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. And thus may YHWH LORD YHWH be with you, just as you have said. Hate evil, love good. Establish justice in the gate. Perhaps YHWH LORD YHWH may be gracious to the remnant of Yosef. Therefore thus says YHWH LORD YHWH, the Master. There is wailing in all the plazas, and in all the streets they say, Woe! Woe! They also call the farmer to mourning, and those who know lamentation to lamentation, and in all the vineyards wailing, because I shall pass through the midst of you, says YHWH. Woe to you who desire the day of YHWH. What kind is this, the day of YHWH to you? It is darkness and not light, as when a man flees from a lion and a bear meets him, or goes home, leans his hand against the wall, and a serpent bites him. Is not the day of YHWH darkness and not light, even gloom with no brightness in it? I hate you, I reject your feasts, nor do I delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer up to me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I will not accept. And I will not look at the peace offerings of your fatlings. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not even listen to the sound of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Did you present me with sacrifices and grain offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? But you have borne Et, the tabernacle of your king, and Kirun, your idols, the star of your gods, which you made for yourselves. Therefore I will make you go into exile beyond Damascus, says YHWH, whose name is God of hosts. Chapter 6. Woe to those who are at ease in Zion, and to those who secure in the mountain of Samaria, the distinguished men of the foremost of nations, to whom the house of Israel comes. Go over to Calneh and look, and go from there to Hamath the Great. Then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are they better than these kingdoms, or is their territory greater than yours? Do you put off the day of calamity, and would you bring near the seat of violence? Those who recline on beds of ivory and sprawl on their couches and eat lambs from the flock and calves from the midst of the stall, who improvise to the sound of the harp like David, have composed songs for themselves. Who drink wine from sprinkling basins while they anoint themselves with the finest of oils. Yet they have not grieved over the ruin of Yosef. Therefore, they will now go into exile at the head of the exiles, and the sprawlers' cultic feasts will turn aside. The Lord YHWH has sworn by himself, Yehovah Elohai Sabaoth has declared, I loathe the arrogance of Yaakov, and I hate his palaces. Therefore I will deliver up city and its fullness. And it will be if 10 men are left in one house, they will die. And when a beloved picks up the dead with one who will lift him up to carry out bones from the house, and he will say to the one who is in the innermost part of that house, is anyone with you? And that one will say, no one. Then he will say, shh, be quiet, for the name of Yehovah is not to be mentioned. For behold, Yehovah is going to command that the great house be smashed to pieces and the small house to fragments. Do horses run on rocks? Or does one plow with an oxen? Yet you have turned justice into poison, and the fruit of righteousness into wormwood. You who rejoice in Lo-debar and say, have we not by our own strength 10 karaim for ourselves? For behold, I am going to raise up a nation against you, O house of Israel, declares Yehovah Elohai Sabaoth, and they will afflict you from the entrance of Hamath to the brook of the Arabah. Chapter 7. Thus the Adonai Yehovah showed me. And behold, he was forming a locust swarm at the beginning of the coming up of the spring crop. And behold, late in the spring crop, after the king's shearing. And so it was, when they had finished eating the vegetation of the land, that I said, Lord YHWH, forgive, I pray. For whom can Jacob stand? For he is small. YHWH relented his mind about this. It shall not be, said YHWH. Thus the Adonai YHWH showed me, and behold, the Adonai YHWH was calling to contend by fire, and it consumed the great deep and began to consume the territory. Then I said, Adonai YHWH, please stop. How can Jacob stand? For he is small. YHWH relented his mind about this. This too shall not be, said the Adonai YHWH. Thus he showed me, and behold, the Adonai stood on a wall made with a plumb line, and in his hand a plumb line. And YHWH said to me, what do you see, Amos? And I said, a plumb line. Then the Adonai said, behold, I am about to put a plumb line in the midst of my people, Israel. I will pass him by no longer. The high places of Isaac will be desolated, and the sanctuaries of Israel laid waste. Then shall I rise up against the house of Jeroboam with a sword. Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is unable to endure all his words, for thus Amos says, Jeroboam will die by the sword, and Israel will certainly go from its land into exile. Then Amaziah said to Amos, Go, you seer, flee away to the land of Yehudah, and there eat bread, and there do your prophesying. But no longer prophesy at Bethel, for it is a sanctuary of the king and a royal house. And Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I am not a prophet, nor am I a son of a prophet, for I am a herdsman and a grower of sycamore figs. But Yehovah took me from behind the flock, and Yehovah said to me, Go prophesy to my people Israel. And now hear the word of Yehovah. You are saying, You shall not prophesy against Israel, nor shall you flow against the house of Isaac. Therefore thus says Yehovah, your wife will become a harlot in the city. Your sons and your daughters will fall by the sword. Your land will be parceled up by a line, and you yourself will die upon unclean soil. Moreover, Israel will certainly go from its land into exile. Chapter 8. Thus the Adonai Yehovah showed me, and behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, What do you see, Amos? And I said, A basket of summer fruit. Then Yehovah said to me, The end has come from my people, Israel. I will pass him by no longer. The songs of the palace will turn to wailing in that day, declares the Adonai Yehovah. Many the corpses, and every place they will cast them forth in silence. Hear this. You trample the needy, to do away with the humble of the land, saying, When will the new moon pass by, so that we may buy grain? And the Sabbath, that we may open the wheat market, to make the ephah smaller, and the shekel bigger, and to cheat with dishonest scales, so as to buy the helpless for the silver, and the needy for a pair of sandals, and we may sell the refuse of the wheat. Yehovah has sworn by the pride of Jacob. Indeed, I will never forget any of their deeds. Because of this, will not the land quake and everyone who dwells in it mourn? Indeed, all of it will rise up like the Nile, and it will be tossed about and subside like the Nile of Egypt. And it will come about in that day, declares the Adonai Yehovah, that I shall make the sun go down at noon, and make the earth dark in the day of light. Then I shall turn your festivals into mourning and your songs into lamentation. And I will bring sackcloth on everyone's loins and baldness on every head. And I will make it like mourning for an only son, and the end of it will be like a bitter day. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord Yehovah, when I will send a famine on the land, not a famine for bread or a thirst for water, but of hearing at the words of Yehovah. And people will stagger from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They will go to and fro to seek the word of Yehovah, but they will not find. In that day, the beautiful virgins and the young men will faint from thirst. Those who swear by the Ashima of Samaria, who say, As your God lives, O Dan, and as the way of Beersheba lives, they will fall and not rise again. Chapter 9. I saw Yehovah standing beside the altar, and he said, Smite the capitals so that the thresholds will shake, and break them on the heads of them all. Then I will slay the rest of them with the sword. They will not have a fugitive who will flee, or a refugee who will escape. Though they dig into Sheol, from there will I bring them down. And though they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I will command the sword that it slay them, and I will set my eyes against them for evil and not for good. And the Master Yehovah of hosts, the one who touches the land so that it melts, and all those who dwell in it mourn, and all of it rises up like the Nile and subsides like the Nile of Egypt. The one who builds in the heavens his steps up and has founded his vaulted dome upon the earth, he who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the face of the earth, Yehovah is his name. Are you not as the sons of Ethiopia to me, O sons of Israel? Have I not brought up Israel from the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Armenians from Kir? Behold, the eyes of the Lord YHWH are on the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from the face of the earth. Nevertheless, I will not totally destroy the house of Jacob, declares YHWH. For surely I will command, and I will sift among all the nations the house of Israel, as grain is sifted in a sieve. Yet not the smallest will fall to the ground. All the sinners of my people will die by the sword, those who say, the calamity will not overtake or confront us. In that day I will raise up the Sukkah of David, which has been cast down, and repair its breaches and ruins. I will raise up and build it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and all the nations who are called by my name, declares YHWH, who does this. Behold, days are coming, declares YHWH, when the plowman will overtake the reaper, and treader of grapes him who sows seed, when the mountains will drip sweet wine, and all the hills will be dissolved. And I will bring back the captives of my people Israel, and they will rebuild the ruined cities and live. They will also plant vineyards and drink their wine, and make gardens and eat their fruit. I will also plant them on their land, and they will not again be rooted out of their land, which I have given them, says YHWH, your Elohim. May YHWH bless you and keep you. May YHWH cause his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. May YHWH bless you and keep you. May YHWH lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Yair Yehovah panav elecha v'yunecha. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom.